Now it goes on. But you see the difference in the tone, the sense? One song is, well, soft, pretty, about my daughter. Another one is raunchy, rough. And yet, who here would doubt that in our lives we like a little of both, or a lot of both, sometimes, or the other? And we call them both the same word. I think English is a really... oh, that's right. I have a mic. Thank you. We're a challenged language with English. What's the politically correct? Grammatically challenged, vocabulary, our lexicon. We've got one word for this thing that, and tell me if I'm clipping, that has it's like a diamond, let's say, with 1,001 facets. And we have one word for it, and yet every facet, some facets are totally diametrically opposite to the other. As a philosopher, as an ontologist, so in my work in trying to understand what's real, I'll say for sure, okay, you go past space-time, down before the atoms, prior to energy, prana, prior to causal ideas, reach to substance. So I'm sort of a substantive philosopher. I believe there's an infinite awareness, infinite being. We can call that Satchit Ananda, we can call it Brahman, we can call it God, we can call it Spirit, and we can give to it many qualities of all the same thing, and one of them being love. And I would totally buy that, agree with it. But then you get to the fragmentation back from infinite substance to more and more finite fragments, atoms, from the string to matter, to space-time, to mind, to selves, to society, to entertainment. And then all of a sudden, this infinite prem, or infinite being, has wonderfully many expressions and many ways of assisting or really pushing each of us to expand, involute. This is sort of an evolution from the substance to this, and we want to involute back to infinite self. So the world is pushing us. And one of the ways it's pushing us is by loving. And yet, sometimes that love pushes us in the very opposite direction, where we'll commit suicide because we loved. And this happened in my family. Someone in my family married into was in love and heartbroken. And this is not a singular story. This is probably happening right now somewhere. The love we feel for our child, and then something happens, and that love then destroying us. Where is this infinite substance in all of this mayhem of love, our rays being shot out in so many directions? So the yogis say, you're on the right track if you're loving, certainly. But in the extreme, anything in the extreme narrows. So what we want to do is, like Gandhi put it, to have love like a circle, and the circle just gets bigger. And he said, love and I drew a circle, and it fit the world. Instead of love being the straight line, me to you, it has to be I and thou, and that's a circle. where we're both in the circle, we're one. And let the circle grow. And in that circle of 360 degrees, you'll find at degree 35, the song Shine, I just played. And at 265 degrees, you'll find the song Lemniscate, I then played after. You'll find all manners. But if we're, instead of the rays just keep pushing us out, stay in that circle, but have the circle grow at the same time, love won't be our enemy ever. Love won't tear us apart. No memory of love will hurt us. Can anybody say here that we have no memories of loves that are painful? I mean, it's hard to have memories of love that are only joy. So when they asked me for the title of this talk, I said, love is a verb, not verbiage. And so I firmly believe that God is a verb. And that's not even a firm belief. That's what my book is about, theorizing the infinite substance, not simply as the noun, but as the verb. So it's too easy and too convenient when we keep things as nouns, because what's a noun? That's a noun. It just sits there. But when I play it, it's a verb, right? We can talk about the noun all day long, but it's not. It's quiet. It just doesn't. So love is the same way. We have to play the instrument of love. We have to, like if God is a verb, we have to God every day, every moment, every breath. So forget love as the noun, because when it's a noun, that's when it starts to ossify. It starts to become, well, the person we love is now wallpaper. I mean, we've seen it a million times. Same bloody wallpaper. We don't want wallpaper for our love. We want a love that's proactive, that's a verb, that is work, service. And that takes staying active with our love. And that makes the circle grow. And then there's no painful memories. It's all just blessings of experiences that grew the circle. Instead of having a love that we're growing, the circle is encompassing the world, as Gandhi would put it, and then something happens and we're shrinking again because we misinterpreted. And instead of staying in that as a verb, it becomes just the verbiage we just tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better when really we're not actually acting on anything. Like, I lose my hands, let's say. I can't play anymore. I could be in tremendous pain. Not from the physical pain of no hands, but from the pain of not being able to play. But instead, I could also compose and sing and tap and do something to make that music. It's the same with love. Some part of you, somebody cuts something off, it doesn't matter. There's always an innumerable number of instruments in your body, in your minds, in your spine and brain to play the tunes of love. So, and that expands that circle. And so that's why I said in the beginning that I don't know if anybody read the book Der Zauberberg, the Magic Mountain, Thomas Mann. There's a character in there that's called Settembrini. And he said about music, and I think he said music is politically suspect. What did he mean by that? Well, music, when you're listening to music, you could be a billionaire or impoverished. You're there, and when you're listening, we're all the same. We're listening to the music. And in those days, modernity, fascism rising, politically suspect. Why? Music can free you from sort of the daily grind, or even from a zealous, from a zealous, radical disposition. Music can be liberating in that sense. So it's politically suspect in that, 1 minute you're like, Heil Hitler, the next minute you're listening to, Mendel or Bach, and you're like, wait a minute, well, Heil who? Same with love. It's politically suspect. It's not something that a centralized power wants to really engender in us. It wants to feed on the narrow, painful loves, and it makes money. So the real love, like we try to grow here, you are all politically suspect. Congratulations. And we want to be politically suspect because we don't want the corporatization of love. We don't want the ersatz, saccharine treacle of love. We want the real deal. And always when it's the real deal, it's always free. So nobody's making anything on it. So when anybody's making any money on love, well, it ain't the real deal. And number two, it's always work. So if somebody says, I got it for you, and you just got to do nothing, it's a lie. I hope you enjoyed the song. I don't know how much time I have left. I know you were supposed to give me but 10. Oh, I got 10 minutes. Oh, wonderful. All right, well then I'll continue to pontificate. The stories of love that I actually identify with as an ascetic are stories where there is a devotee. This is like from Puranas and the ancient higher age texts. So to show the love, it's self-sacrifice. Now, I don't know how many of you are picking up my book, but I think it's free, right? It's free from me, but whatever. Support the community. All right, but so yeah, pick it up so that you're supporting this community. Read it. I'm not getting anything. I don't want anything. Not for talking, not for the book. But you'll find probably, I don't know, have you read it? One word, have I said the word, how many times did I say the word love? I mean, maybe not even at all.
No, I was looking through to find
Find the reference. Why? Politically suspect. What I found was a word that could not be abused and misused, which was the same as love, but it was identity. I identify with you. Now, can you tell me, if I say that to you, with all my heart, that I don't love you?
No.
Yeah, and if I said I love you, well, then it's like, uh-oh, red flags. Oh, what's going on? Who is this guy? What's he want? Wait a minute. This is something, identity. And this is the crux of it, right here. The Mysterium Tremendus. Sweet mystery of life. What does that song go? And how I found thee. It's love and okay. But what's the mystery of love? Okay. So, the infinite substance, call it Satchitananda, bliss, love, infinite. Okay. It sacrifices its infinitude to fragment and plays with the idea of division and creates all of us, manifests all of us, right? Okay. This evolution of awareness, fragmentation, and then the idea is to involute back. So if you look at the stories that, like I was saying, that I identify with most as real love from the ancient higher ages, it's always self-sacrifice. And if you look at the stories of love, or stories that just moved us the most in history, it's always self-sacrifice. Someone self-sacrificing. And when I say love is a verb, the verb is self-sacrifice. Sacrificing the narrow self on the altar of the expansive infinite self. And that is the involution from the finite back to the infinitude. Just as the infinite sacrificed its infinitude to play with the idea of division, we sacrifice our finitude to realize the indivisibility. And that, obviously, as we all know in life, is not an easy feat. It's not a mean feat. Mean as in average. But that's the work, self-sacrifice. So that's why in my book I don't use the word love as much. I use these terms because we can't escape them as easily. They stare us in the face like the mirror. While love, because of centuries of the Romantic era and centuries of so much bastardization, it's easy for us to manipulate it and play mind games with it. But self-sacrifice, you can't. Well, it's harder to run away from. And identifying with others, well, there you go. Take that challenge. And when you take that challenge, that's love. That's love in action. That's where it's a verb, not verbiage. So you'll find in the stories that I was mentioning, this ascetic self-sacrificing. And I don't mean just self-sacrificing, I don't get to eat at not like that. More like sacrificing the senses, stilling the breath, going within, sacrificing identity, narrow identity, sacrificing ourselves. They're sacrificing ourselves on the terrestrial level, which is extremely important. That's seva, service. Civilization, civis, comes from the ancient Sanskrit. The cognate was seva, which is the Sanskrit for service. So all of civilization is based upon the very principle of service, seva, which is self-sacrifice. We don't have civilization. We're not civilized unless we're sacrificing for one another. So you have these stories of these ascetics doing decades of penance, of self-sacrifice, mastering the breath, stilling, going within, going from 20 breaths a minute and using those 20 breaths to spread the love to one breath a minute, to one breath a day, to one breath a month, and sacrificing all those breaths, all that time, for that God image, whatever it was. And that's sort of the esoteric version of self-sacrifice. But however each of us manifests it in our lives, it's self-sacrifice. It is the mirror of what the infinite not did. In fact, there's no time, obviously. It is doing it now. It is in the eternal moment, self-sacrificing. We can't this whole thing would just vanish if there was no self-sacrifice. So they have the ritual of pouring the ghee, something of value, basically, into the fire to sacrifice something, or the term cut a deal. That's from the Hebrew lachtoch. They literally cut the animal in half to cut a deal with God. Let's cut a deal, Lord. We'll cut this thing in half. This is yours. This is ours. And let that fragrance go up. And we're sacrificing that. We're not eating that. We're not doing anything with that. So, however we manifest that self-sacrifice, that service, that civilization, that seva, where that circle expands, whether it's on an esoteric, mystical, ascetic, yogic level, or on a transpersonal level, on a communal level, it doesn't matter. They all arrive at the same point of involuting reality, and it's the highest mimicry of spirit, of the infinite, to mimic its sacrifice, so that we may play with the idea of division and go back to unity. Does this make any sense? All right. Well, I probably have a few more minutes. Anybody have a question from anything I've spoken about? I never get any questions, but all right.
What would be an extreme example of a very low form of love and an extreme example of a very high form of love?
Well, I'll give you those two, but they're going to both be extreme love. Fundamentalist suicide bomber or kamikaze pilot. Love of country, love of nation, love of the peoples, self-sacrifice in a ridiculous way, and yet completely narrow, completely ideological. But wow. The horror of such love. The terror. Would you ask for the other one? No memory. Oh, the other, right, the high. That would be, to me, the balance between service to the community, service to the world, which for me was like writing God Without Religion. Not just sitting on I sat on my butt, and I used to sit on my butt for 15 hours a day doing this ascetic. But then after that, I didn't sit on my butt and just hold on to it all. I wrote it down, and I spent more money on it than I made, because authors don't make anything. Publishers make. Distributors, the middlemen, Amazon, not the author. So I'd say the extreme of love would be looking within, just like that, just stilling the breath, stilling the mind. You feel that? So the balance, serving others, serving thou, expanding the circle, and the ascetic version of going within and saying, literally, I sit down, write your obituary. The world is gone. I'm within it now. Any other questions? Everybody's got it. Got that down. Sure. What do you got next? Easy. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. It's funny. Love is actually the biggest and the smallest subject at the same time. It's so simple and yet so, oh my God. So I hope I've put it in some sort of larger perspective. Oh, yes.
Actually, it reminds me of George Orwell's book 1984, and the society where love was not allowed. So you were severely punished if two people managed to get together, and it was not allowed in there.
There's another novel by Eugene Zamyatin, which was prior to it, called We, where again it was that kind of dystopian. But I think the challenge today is to look at our world and see, and not allow us to be blinded to the similarities of where love has been corporatized and monetized and I mean, just look at the hegemony, the gender hegemony in the world between men and women, where women are so disempowered. What are we talking about? Where in our right minds can we talk about loving? Men writing songs of "I love my woman." I mean, come on. Then what the hell's going on with this? Where women, 90%, I mean, they do more work and they get 1/10 or 1/20 of the power. That's not love. That's a ridiculous imbalance. That's insane. So we're living in an insane society. I mean, even Orwell didn't see that. Internally, there's prana and apana. There's negative and positive. There's left and right side of the body. There's polarity. We are all male and female in all of us. Okay. To have perfect intuitive self-knowledge where the five senses unite into one avenue of self-knowledge, it's the balance of male and female. Read Genesis. Did anybody read Genesis? Garden of Eden? Did it say Adam fell in love with Eve and oh my God, they just had a moment, Casablanca moment? There's nothing like that. I don't recall it. It was like Adam knew Eve. Well, we know what that meant. That's about it. Sort of a Kama Sutra moment. And she's made from his rib. Great. That just makes me as a woman, the woman in me, feel just awesome. We gotta be honest with each other. If I had, and I do. Okay, this climate change, that's huge. But I believe every problem, every single challenge of the human race, including climate change, could be addressed if women had equal power to men. Everything would be fine and dandy. Every problem is simply from the imbalance of male and female power. And that's not love to me. That's...
How do you live in a world like that?
How?
Yeah, how do you...
I have some ideas.
Are you happy?
Am I happy? With the state of affairs or with myself?
With yourself.
Oh,
With yourself.
I'm in bliss with myself, but
About love, are you happy with your life?
extremely. But I'm not happy. See, that's where love is to be. You want contentment with the narrow self. When you say contentment is an injunction of virtue, you want to be content with the narrow self. You never want to be content with the larger self. You want to always be discontent for others. You want to never be content with the status quo. So, no, I'm completely miserable with this. And I remain content and in bliss with this so that I don't have to think about this. And I can focus on this and get it to be like this. So what's my idea? My idea is to literally defund every military organization on the planet and give it to educating women all over the world. Educated women automatically have children later. That means the generation goes from like, what is it, like 7 years now? Is a generation? It used to be 20. Now it's like 7, like we're just popping them out because these women are not educated. They're disempowered. They're slaves. So empower women. Give them education. Give them opportunity. Give them incentives. I mean, spend the billions, the trillions on women. But who holds the purse strings right now? So what we have to do is, we have to, I mean, if there's one cause, it's that. And so if we want to talk about love between man and woman, I mean, get there. Everything else is literally just verbiage until women are empowered. And who am I to say these things as a man? But I'm not a man. I don't identify as a man. I identify not even as a human, but as a human, I have male and female in me, and I try to balance them. And I like the female parts, and I like the male parts.
I heard a quote from the Dalai Lama who said that the balance of evolution will fall on American women.
They are probably, in some respects, they are more empowered, obviously, than third world. I mean, the horror stories out of India or Africa tear the heart, and yet we have here a infotainment, corporatocracy, fascist radicalization, where even I mean, I think there was something in Madeleine Albright who said, "Go to hell if you don't vote for Clinton," something like that. And obviously, I don't subscribe to that sort of language or approach. And yet, how many times I've seen in my study of religion where women are, from a young age, obviously, buying into ideologies, dogmas that are entirely contrary to their social power and well-being. And then they fight for it more zealously than the men as they grow old and identify with it. So some of the greatest enemies of, obviously, in vast numbers, it's the men. Obviously, what are we talking about? But women, too, need to be educated about the subtle ways in which ancient patriarchal dogmas have insinuated themselves in the mind, creating these male god images, and we don't want to fight each other anymore over this. We have to recognize the imbalance, this gender hegemony, and we need to correct it, and soon.
So it is, you're out of time.
Okay.